You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
You are very welcome. I am Ahonu, and this is my lovely Aingeal Rose. Aingeal Rose raised a very interesting topic this morning, and it really was a surprise. Everybody's familiar with the minefield that we're going through right now. There's no doubt that in this day and age, life seems to be a minefield. It really...
You're talking M-I-N-E.
M-I-N-E. It seems to be a minefield. Politics is a minefield. Earning a living is a minefield. Trying to find clean food to eat is a minefield. Breathing clean air, even choosing a place to live is almost like a minefield, because there could be floods, there could be fires, there could be any kind of natural disasters, as we're seeing all over the world. Mm-hmm. And it really is a minefield. So Aingeal Rose said to me this morning, let's talk about the minefield. But she said, mind field, about how creative it is and what we can do to create the circumstances that we want using the power of the mind. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic, because it's interesting where our minds go when we talk or think about natural disasters or negative politics or destructive relationships or whatever it might be. Our mind goes into this negative place of, the future is not good. And when she raised this possibility of exploring the mind field of creation and the power of the creative mind, I thought it was a beautiful thing for us to talk about. So Aingeal Rose, what's on your mind?
Well, let me preface it by saying that, I, like a lot of other people, Ahonu, I have days where I wake up and I just feel very despondent about the world and what's happening in it and what's happening in our country specifically, but not just our country, everywhere. And I find that I have to deliberately do something to shift my focus. Otherwise, I'll stay in that place all day long, that fearful place. And it just so happened, too, that I'm finding that my clients are calling me for the same reasons. They're just in chaos. Their mind is in chaos. Their emotions are in chaos. And they just have this fearful, foreboding sense of the future.
Yes. So,
as usual, I asked Source about it this morning. And what I like about Source, or any guide, and I'm not someone who uses guides. I go to Source. But any guide worth their salt will always bring you back to your inner self. And so the phrase came to me today that we feel like we're living in a minefield where you don't know where to go or what to do.
You mean mind field?
Well, no, we're living, the outer world seems like a mine, M-I-N-E
yes,
field, but
indeed, yes.
I want to talk about the mind, M-I-N-D field.
Uh-huh.
Because no matter, and if I were to say what is the theme, it would be powerlessness. It would be that people feel powerless.
Right. And that's across the board.
That's across the board in general.
Personal relationships, in their home, family, work, business, politics, life, overall. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying everybody is this way.
Sure.
But there are many people who call for an Akashic record reading for help with that.
Yes.
Okay. Whenever I go to Source about this, the very first thing Source does is remind me of the mind field, M-I-N-D. In fact, the image it gave me this morning was of a big tree of life. Now, I'm not talking about the Kabbalah or any religious doctrine. I just want us to imagine a tree, just a tree in the forest that has a really large trunk and has roots that are deep in the ground, and it has an abundance of leaves.
Right. And in a way, just as you're starting to describe that, I remember the Native Americans called the trees the standing ones. So it's like they have this inner intelligence or this great purpose.
Or we always hug a tree, don't we? We love to hug trees.
And we feel better for it.
We do.
So there's this wisdom about the tree.
Yeah.
It's like the healing tree.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, but Source has given me this image. as a manifesting tree. In other words, try to imagine a tree and then try to imagine it as an invisible tree of light. Okay. And with its roots deep into the ground and its leaves stretching, to heaven with all its abundance. And what it said to do was to use that image as a manifesting tool, like to imagine that you are filling in these leaves with things that you desire to become reality.
Like as if you were filling them in on a coloring book. Is that what you mean?
Well, it doesn't have to be. It could just be an image that you draw yourself on a piece of paper of a tree.
So each of the branches you would fill in branches of your...
But no, where the leaves are. Not on the branches, because you want to have a lot of leaves. So the leaves you would fill in, and of course you'd just draw an outline, and they'd be empty inside, and you'd write in what you wanted to have.
So each leaf becomes a desire or something that you want.
Or an outcome. Really important that they are outcomes you want to experience. Okay. And even, you see, and I'll back up a little bit to talk about our roots, because I was reading something yesterday which really struck home to me, Ahonu, and it was somebody who's done a lot with rebirthing and done a lot with
pre and perinatal psychotherapy.
That's right.
That's what she was working with.
And she was talking about if you are somebody who your mother didn't necessarily want to get pregnant in the womb, and what it's like for the fetus to be in a womb like that, and that sometimes it's very difficult for the fetus or the placenta to anchor in the womb, to have a root, because the womb is basically rejecting it because the mother doesn't really want it. So this struck home to me because I have similarities in my own life. But what Source was showing me today is that as important as it is to fill out those leaves in terms of your goal, it's just as equally important to put what you want in those roots. Okay, so for myself, since my roots weren't that healthy, okay?
Now, you're not talking about the root chakra.
No, I'm talking about the root of the tree.
The root of the tree of life. And is that symbolically the same as when the placenta is rooted in the mother's body, that it's forming roots, and that's where it's getting its nourishment from? Is that
right? But we don't really want to bring that image into this. We're just bringing in the image of if your initial foundation for your life here wasn't the healthy one.
Okay.
Then you can go back and recreate those roots. You can go back and on those roots of the tree, you could start writing in how you did want your roots to be. What did it feel like? What would it feel like if you could redesign yourself, Ahonu?
Right.
Back to your roots. Okay.
Or instead of the plant, instead of the tree seeding itself in an arid area, that it was seeded in a paradise, for example.
Fertility or acceptance or abundant love or incredible nourishment or whatever. Yes. Okay. But what Source was saying is recreate your roots.
Okay.
Go back and put in those roots what you really would have liked to experience. Okay. And in a way, you can relate the image of this tree that I'm seeing. You could imagine that the tree trunk is your pranic tube in your body, and your pranic tube being the channel of light and liquid that is in your spine, that goes from up above your crown to down out your perineum. You can imagine that that's your trunk if you want to. Okay, and you could imagine that, in a way, this is really reformatting your physical body too, because the roots do go out of the root area, and you're anchoring into earth becomes something very different, healthy.
Very interesting.
Okay, and that the leaves are just you creating your life, and also your body gets this message too, and that's very important because a lot of our experiences stay locked into the body, into the cells. Okay, so it's important that shifts somehow. We have to change that chemistry. Mm-hmm. But what I liked about the answer was that in the world we live in today, I felt like Source was saying, you all need to get a grip. You need to get a grip of yourselves when you get like this, because you have to go back to your inner self, back to the fact that you are mind. That's your true nature, your mind, and mind is eternally creative. And it's unlimited. Okay, so it's when I hear answers like that, I know they're right, because it puts the power right back into you and saying, look, there's such a tendency to get lost in the chaos of the outer world.
Right. And to feel like a victim.
Feel like a victim in all this, and that you have no power. But it reminds us that the truth is the outer world is only a reflection of our inner worlds. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there is no world out there. It's a thought creation. And it's a creation based on what we believe we are. Okay, so if we believe that we're powerless and we're little and we have all these limitations and that other people are more powerful than us and that they control us, then we're just going to get more of this. Okay, in any kind of defense on any level is that belief system. Any kind of an idea that you've got to, protect yourself from this or that is the idea that you're little.
Right.
Okay. In fact, A Course in Miracles has a great statement that says, if I defend myself, I am attacked. Okay.
Right, because once you go there at all,
that's right.
You're putting yourself into that victimizer consciousness.
That's right. And, we only have a limited supply of this or that, so we have to protect our resources and we have to protect our borders and we have to do all this. All of that is coming from a belief that you're small, that you're limited, that you live in a lack universe.
Right.
And someone's going to take yours.
Right.
Okay.
So the whole idea then of the abundance of the leaves on a tree immediately overcomes and surpasses that sense of limitation, that it's completely
abundant.
It does.
And the thing about manifesting that we always have to remind people is that it isn't up to them to figure out how. This is where people get hung up. They think, I want this goal, but I don't know how. I don't know how. Mm-hmm. But with the universe, you don't have to know how. Okay, mind is an intelligent life force that has the ability to take what you imagine and coalesce it into a form. Okay, so really it's limitless. It's limitless in what it can do, and the only limitations of it are what you think.
Yes.
Okay, so in answer to this question about looking at the news, looking at the fires, looking at the water, and how, if we can imagine that it reflects the imbalances within us, it reflects the self-work we haven't done. We haven't really looked at our thoughts and beliefs and our limitations, or even what we think about ourselves.
Well, just last week you talked about the volcanoes, how it was very like Kundalini energy coming up as fire or as anger or as an outburst or an outpouring.
Out of balance.
Out of balance.
I never get that volcanoes are angry. I don't get that. I get that it's fire energy that has built up and is now releasing itself.
Yes.
Okay.
But then a beautiful analogy from what you're saying, though, is that the tree itself doesn't have to artificially manufacture a leaf. It says, I'm going to make a leaf now in my furthermost extremity. It doesn't have to do that. It just manifests the leaves.
It just knows how to do it. There's an intelligence there that does it.
Which is what you're talking about, our mind.
We just have to plant the seeds.
Right.
And water them with our focus and our concentration.
Yes.
Okay, and just if we have to do that a few times, that's okay. But I think the important message is Source is saying, get a grip, people. Mm-hmm. Get a grip, because this is all about your will, right? I mean, things are designed today to take down our will, to make us feel small and weak and powerless. And it's telling us, look, refer back to your inner self. You haven't really explored your inner self. You don't even know. We were just watching something yesterday on YouTube about all the different abilities that the mind has.
That's right.
Everything from telekinesis to people who can create fire,
levitation,
moving through walls. That these abilities are within us, and the only reason we don't know about them is because we don't look there. Yeah. We look externally.
We believe we don't have them.
Right.
That was the first flaw.
Yes. Effectively. So if you do look out there, it looks like you're in a minefield, MINE, where you're not safe. You're threatened at every moment. Mm-hmm. But Source is saying, look, you got to pull your energy back, bring it inside, learn who you are internally. Mm-hmm. Look at your beliefs, look at what you think, and start creating with your mind.
Yes.
And creation with your mind isn't that you try to destroy something. Okay, you see something out there you don't like, so you're going to use your mind to imagine it destroyed. That's a misuse of your mind energy.
Mm-hmm.
Is say, focus on the evolution of yourself. Focus on the positive life you want to have. Focus on your own internal happiness. Be aware of the thoughts you have that are contrary to that don't believe you can have that. Okay, in other words, it's kind of saying we're either going to misuse mind, M-I-N-D, or we're going to use it constructively. So it's a reminder to, pull yourself back to yourself, to your center, take your energy off the external things, and start creating with your mind.
I'd like to use this opportunity just to ask for some feedback from our viewers and our listeners by way of the fact that we have published a lot of creative books and colouring books and that kind of thing. And Aingeal Rose had mentioned before we came on air today that it would be perhaps a nice idea to do a series of these tree pictures that you could paint in or write in your desires in the leaves. And I'd like to ask if that's something you'd like us to do. If it is, please let us know, because we would love to do something like that if we felt it was something that was desired and needed and wanted. So do please let us know, and we would be very pleased to produce something like that.
All right, Ahonu, that's all I have to say for
today. All right,
today.
That's super. It's a pleasure.
Onward, Christian soldiers.
Onward. I don't know if we'll include
I don't know about that. No,
However,
we won't with that, but just onward.
Onward, indeed. And thank you for being with us and for listening to us. It's always a beautiful thing to serve like this and to impart knowledge. And we appreciate you listening and spending the time with us. Until the next time, from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.